The Radio Memories Network is brought to you in part by Liberated Syndication. Podcast publishing made easy. Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com.
You are lost in a London fog, uncertain whether the figures looming around you are real or creatures of your imagination. And somewhere in the wet grayness lurks a murderer from whom you must escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure. Tonight, we escape to a fog-shrouded city and the terror of a shell-shocked mind, as Algernon Blackwood describes them in his ghostly story, Confession.
There was no doubt about it. The woman was dead. Her cheek was cold to my touch. The head of the long, sharp hat pin protruded from her breast above the heart. She was dead. Murdered. And I stood there by the bed, my brain whirling crazily. I was alone in an empty house with a murdered woman. And then suddenly fear flashed across my brain and cleared it. I heard the door below open and close. Footsteps. Someone was coming across the downstairs hall, onto the stairs. Coming up here. In a moment I would be discovered. In a moment someone would walk into this room and see me standing over the body. In a moment my escape would be cut off. Quickly I slipped across the hall and into another of the empty bedrooms. I leaned against the closed door, breathing heavily, listening to those steps come closer. Would he look into any of the other bedrooms first? Would I be discovered here? He passed my door and went into the room, straight in, closed the door behind him. Then he knew where to come. I waited a moment, waited for some sound, some gasp of discovery. There was none. Then he knew what to expect. I must escape quickly before he came out of that room. I started down the stairs, carefully, to avoid any sound. And suddenly the door of that room opened. The beam of a flashlight searched down the hall. I took the stairs 3 at a time, burst open the front door, and fled into the street, fled into the sanctuary of the fog. How long and how far I ran, I do not know. I could see nothing, feel nothing but the clammy dampness of the fog. I don't know whether he was still following me or not. I ran out of sheer terror, up one street, down another, with no idea of where I was or where I was going. Perhaps I was running in circles. Perhaps I would run right back to the house. Well, I stopped. I leaned heavily against the wall. My hands were shaking as I raised them to my perspiring face. I held them there to steady them, ran them through my wet hair. My hat. I didn't have it. I'd left my hat back there in that room, on the bed beside that dead woman. And it had my initials in it. Nearby, a street lamp formed a fuzzy ball of yellow in the enveloping murk. And now a figure loomed suddenly beneath it, just as she had materialized so short a time ago under another streetlight. Or was it the same one? Was it she again? Was it he, the one who was following me? Was it real at all? Perhaps it was only a creature of my madness.
My dear sir, you're ill.
I...
Oh, here, old fellow, let me help you. Why, you're almost ready to fall.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Here, just lean on my arm.
Yes. You are real, aren't you?
Real? I don't understand. I say, you're very near collapse, you know. And I happen to be a doctor. Luckily, too, you're just outside my very house. Come in for a moment, won't you?
Why, you're very kind. Yes, I will, if it's Not too much trouble for you?
None at all, my dear chap. Please do.
Within 5 minutes, I was seated in a comfortable chair before a toasting fire, sipping a hot cup of tea. I could feel my nerves relaxing, but the traces of my illness must have been clear on my face, because my host observed.
Your trouble is shell shock, isn't it?
Why, yes, how did you know?
I've been in the service, and I'm a doctor.
Oh, of course, I only meant I'm supposed to be recovered, or almost. But I got lost in the fog, felt ill suddenly. Terrified, you know.
I know. You should never have been out on a night like this. If you've got far to go, you'd better let me put you up.
You're very kind indeed, but I don't want to be in any trouble.
Oh, no trouble at all. I'd like to be of help. It's the least we veterans can do for each other. Oh, the blasted war. Thank goodness it's over. You're not English, are you?
No, Canadian. I haven't been demobilized yet. I'm still in the Army Hospital at Regent's Park under the care of Dr. Henry.
Ah, yes. Very good man. I'd say he's done well by you. Up till tonight, I mean.
Yes. Of course, we had no idea there would be a fog. I still get in a panic when I feel all alone.
Well, that's usual, but then there was something more than that tonight, wasn't there?
What do you mean?
Simply that you've had rather a severe shock quite recently, haven't you?
How did you know that?
My dear chap, I'm a doctor. My business to know. You were in much too agitated a state when I found you for me to suppose it could have been done simply by the fog. And, if I may hazard another guess, I should say it would be a relief to you and wise as well if you could unburden yourself to someone who would understand. Am I not right?
Someone who would understand. That's just it. I doubt if there is anyone like that. It's so incredible.
Oh, the more incredible, the greater your need to tell it. Repression in cases like yours can be dangerous, as you must know. You think you've hidden it, but it bides its time and it comes up later causing a lot of trouble. Confession, you know. Confession is good for the soul.
Yes, I suppose you are right. But it is so wildly unbelievable.
Since we're strangers, my belief or disbelief can make no difference. And I think I can promise you in advance that I shall believe all you have to say.
Well, but I've got to tell somebody about it soon anyway.
Cigarette to help with telling?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'd better start back at the very beginning of the adventure, then. It started today at the sanitarium. I've been there for some months, and today, when Dr. Henry called to check on me, I knew...
Well, young man, you're as fit as a prize heifer and twice as frisky. The diet here must agree with you.
I have no complaints, Doctor, but if I'm well again, then I'd like to get back into circulation.
Will you listen to him, nurse, rushing things as usual? You'd think he didn't like us here.
The way he bothers us to let him go into town, I'm sure of it, Doctor. He's getting so healthy, he's bursting at the seams.
There, you see? How about it, Doctor? Can't I just have a day or an evening in town?
What's the great attraction in that dirty place? Some girl, no doubt?
Well, yes, that is in a way. I met her in France. She's a Red Cross girl. She's invited me to stop in for tea if I'm up in London, and, well, it's just that I'd feel human again, seeing a girl having tea, a cigarette, chatting. That's all.
Young man, I not only approve of your day in town, I'm prescribing it. It'll do you good. You've got to start getting used to society again anyway.
And you think I can manage it alone?
Why not? You get around the neighborhood by yourself well enough, don't you? There's nothing so very different about London. Certainly nothing to be afraid of.
No, of course not.
Call the young lady and find out the directions, where to get off the underground, what turns to take, and so on. Go in the daytime, return before dark. No danger of getting lost. Simple. Do it. Do you good.
Then this means I'm getting better. I'll be able to go home soon?
There you go. Rushing things again. But yes, I think perhaps we're on the
fiery
last
horse
leg.
with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver. The Lone
Now,
Ranger.
tell me, young man, what about your friends?
No, Doctor. I think they've deserted me. I don't see them anymore. No more ghosts. No more dead comrades stopping in for a chat.
Good.
This
For
is
how
the
long
legend of
Oh,
a man
several
and
weeks
a
at
horse.
least. I can hardly
and how
remember
they
when I
met.
last saw one.
The story of
Talk.
the Lone Ranger
Yes,
and his
talk.
great horse Silver.
Of course, in the dark room at night, sometimes the
That's
shadows...
not quite the same thing. Lots of well people fancy
Lone
they see
Ranger
the
and
shadows
Tonto
move at
were
night.
trailing the worst
Especially
outlaw
after
in
they've
the
been
West.
reading some penny
His
dread.
name was Butch Cavendish.
Yes, I suppose.
They had followed
At
his
any rate,
trail for
you
many
can
weeks,
distinguish between
until
the real
finally
people
they
and the
noticed that
unreal
the
now.
hoofprints
And
of the
that's a big
outlaw's
step,
horse were
considering
fresh.
how you were a few months ago.
Well, it's only when I feel completely alone. Cut off that the old panic begins a little, but not as much as before.
Many people don't like
want
to
to take
feel
him alive.
They can fight down that panic if you nip it in the bud. So will you.
Tonto, he missed me, but he shot my horse. Get after
Severe
him.
shock could undo all our work.
Tonto's horse
By
was
all
tired and no
means,
match in speed for
avoid
the animal
shock.
Cavendish rode. The outlaw escaped. When Tonto returned from the futile chase, he found the
Avoid
Lone Ranger
shock, he
standing
said.
beside his dead horse.
Very
A good
funny.
horse,
isn't it?
Tonto. Loyal, faithful,
But who could have
brave.
known then what would
But my
happen?
next horse must be faster.
How could I have suspected
I
as I
wish
went
that-
about planning my day in
Tonto,
town, my
We've
holiday?
heard stories of a wild
I called the
horse,
girl
a
who
fiery
arranged
white
our tea
stallion.
party. I was to be at a
Him
little
seen
house
near
in
valley
Norfolk
over
Place.
there, where Cavendish go.
We'll be on the lookout for the wild horse while we follow Cavendish.
Yes, I'm sure I will. It's near South Kensington Station.
Tonto's horse carried the Lone Ranger's saddle, his saddlebags, and bridle, while the masked man and the Indian continued on foot along the outlaw's trail. When they reached the top of a hill,
Look, Tonto.
they halted suddenly and stared
Oh,
at
I'll
an
find it, all right.
awe-inspiring sight
Now,
far
don't
down
do
in
any
the
great
valley.
bother.
They saw a great white stallion in a death fight with a giant buffalo. The horse was
Until
plunging,
full.
rearing,
Yes.
charging, and dodging
Thanks.
wildly, and the sun flashed from his coat as from a coat of polished silver. They realized that this was the legendary white stallion,
And
the
so it
one
all
ranchers
started
and
out as a
hunters had
cheerful
talked so
adventure.
much about.
And everything went
Must
well
have
in
that
the
horse.
city.
I'll try to
I
shoot
made
the
my
buffalo.
change underground at Piccadilly, took the local to South
I'll get
Kensington
closer
Station.
before it's too late.
And
As
there
he
I
ran
came up at
downhill, the
surface
Lone
again.
Ranger watched the battle.
And when
The
I
sweet
walked out,
white stallion was nimble and
I stepped
courageous,
into a
but his strength began to wane.
solid,
The buffalo
opaque
charged
blanket
again
of
and again.
white fog.
The splendid muscles of the white horse were slower in responding, then too slow. He was caught by the
I could
buffalo's
hear the
charge.
traffic,
Wet crimson
the
stained
rumble
his
of the
purified
city
coat.
around me.
Another charge.
I could hear
The
footsteps,
white horse
an
saw it
occasional
coming, and he
muffled
couldn't
voice.
dodge. He staggered and
But I could
fell.
see
the
almost
monster
nothing.
drew back and lowered his head
This is
for the
how a
death
blind
charge.
man feels.
And then 2 shots rang
The
out.
only objects of relief from that
The
dreadful
buffalo
enveloping
shuddered
grey
from
wall
the
were
impact of the
an
masked man's
occasional
bullets.
blur of yellow
For an
from a street
instant, he
lamp
stood motionless.
or a motor car
Then
headlight,
fell.
a glimmering patch from some big lighted shop window here and there, and the figures of other people passing by, dark and floating and indistinct. Or were they people? Might they not be those phantom figures again? Just like the ones that haunted me before I went into the sanitarium.
The white stallion lay quietly
Ghostly,
as the
blurred
Lone
figures
Ranger
of
bathed his wounds.
Dead comrades from
During the
Dunkirk
next several
and
days, the
Abbeville.
masked man and the
mud of
Indian
Belgium.
cared for the injured horse. Then the wounds were closed,
here
and the
comes another
horse's
one.
strength had
I
returned.
can hear his king.
There was
tapping.
once more fire
Look
in his
closely now,
eye,
make sure.
a spring in his step, and his head was lifted proudly.
Tonto,
He looks real enough, doesn't he? They are real, I'm positive of it, and I'm not alone. They're all around me.
I wonder if you'll take a saddle.
But even as I
Let's
told
try.
myself this, the old panic was growing inside. Here now, old fellow, you've got to get hold of yourself.
No,
Next
Tonto,
one comes
wait.
along, speak up.
Let him go.
Speak up to him. Ask him the way to Morley
Have that
Place.
horse more
Ask,
than anything
can you
in
put
the
me on the
world.
trail to Morley
He
Place?
deserves his
Just like
freedom.
that.
He fought for
You'll
it.
see. Here now. Here he
He's turned to
comes.
look at us.
Ask away.
See how the sun
Beg
reflects
pardon.
from his white
Can you
coat.
put me on...
Say, is this right for the tube station, you know?
silver.
I'm utterly lost. I want South
Be a name
Kensington.
for him.
Why, yes, I have just come from there. Straight along, I think.
Oh, thanks awfully.
Oh, but I say, can you put me on the trail to Morley Place?
Tonto, he's coming back. It's just as if he knew what I said.
Well, no matter, he was real enough. He spoke up like a real person, all
Silver,
right.
you beauty.
Maybe the next...
Hand me the halter, Tonto.
Oh, I say, I beg your pardon.
As the mighty stallion felt the halter, he trembled as if from a chill. Every instinct
afraid
told
I-
him that
I
he
must
must
be lost.
flee at once to
Can
preserve
you
his
direct me to
freedom.
Morley Place?
And yet he stood his ground.
I think you've
It
missed your
wasn't
turning.
gratitude
You
that kept
should
him
have to
there.
double
It was
back,
something
please.
stronger, some
Maybe
mysterious
two.
bond of
Take the
friendship and
first
understanding.
turn to the right and
He heard
go
the man's
one
voice,
straight and then
and he
double
liked it.
back
Silver.
two, then left
Silver.
again, and you-
We're going to be
I
partners.
say, thanks. That was first right, and then...
That you use halter.
Now, Tonto, the saddle.
Oh, no horse like that.
Disappeared.
Take saddle.
There never was a
Like a
horse
ghost.
like this. Now, Silver, we're going to work together.
The horse was wild and unused to the ways of men, and the weight of a saddle and a rider
The panic was rising in me. They were real people, yes, but they appeared and disappeared so disconcertingly quickly. And when I turned off down the main street, there were fewer of them. I turned again.
And after several
and again.
days of training,
but I couldn't remember the direction. Suddenly, I knew I was lost. And now I was in some little backwater where passers-by were rare. Where no one came.
Beat the plains like those
But I was alone.
of the great horse Silver. During the past few days, Cavendish had gotten far away, but the masked
Now the
man
panic
followed
swept over me.
relentlessly,
I
with
stumbled on
only
a curb.
minimum
My
of rest.
cane swept empty air.
Days to cut
I
down
fell
the
to the icy
outlaw's
pavement.
lead, but at long last,
I was shaking so that I couldn't rise to my feet. I crawled across the open space of the street on my hands and knees.
Stallion responded with a new burst
Only
of
when I
speed.
crossed the curb and felt a warm wall could I stand up
Cavendish
again.
fired wild shots over
And when I
his
stood
shoulder
there,
until his gun
shaken
was
and
empty.
frantic.
His horse, though powerful
Molly
and
Place
fast,
must be
was
very
no
close.
match
The
for
little
charging
red-crossed
Silver.
girl waiting with her warm fire
Here
and
the
hot
panic
steam.
filled the outlaw's face.
But
He
where?
heard the hoofbeats ever nearer.
Where?
And the masked man shouts,
I want you, Cavendish!
The masked man's avowed
Suddenly, in the
mission
yellow
was
blur of the
accomplished.
nearest street lamp, a
The
faint
last of the
darkening of the
Cavendish gang
fog
was
caught my
captured
eye.
to be tried by
It was not a
law
figure
and
this time.
punished for his crimes.
Only the shadow of
But
the
there were
coals
many others
grotesquely
whose criminal
magnified.
plans were to be challenged
No.
by the Lone Ranger,
No, it moved.
his faithful
It came
Indian
toward me.
companion
It was a
Tonto,
figure,
and his
a
great
woman.
horse Silver.
She came right up to me. Fear gripped me, and then I remembered the doctor's advice.
Don't ignore them. Treat them as beings. Speak to them and go with them. Prove their unreality then, and they will leave you.
And so I gripped the wall behind me and spoke to her. Lost your way like myself, haven't you, ma'am? Do you know where we are, Toll? Morley Place I'm looking for.
Where am I?
Well, I say you're more frightened than I am. May I help you?
I'm lost. I've lost myself. I can't find my way back.
Same here. I'm terrified of being alone, too. I've had shell shock, you know. Let's go together. We'll find our way together, eh?
Who are you?
Name's O'Reilly, a Canadian. I'm going to have tea with a friend in Morley Place. What's your address? Do you know the name of the street here?
I came out suddenly, unexpectedly. I can't find my way home again. Just when I was expecting him to.
I say, steady, ma'am.
He may be there now, waiting for me this very moment, and I can't get back.
Have you any idea of the direction, ma'am? Any at all? We'll go together.
Listen. I hear him calling. I remember.
Wait, ma'am. Wait. Don't leave me here alone. I'm going with you. Wait. She was running fast through the fog. It was all I could do to keep up with her. But I felt I must not lose her or my own nerves would go to pieces. How she found her way in the fog, running so quickly, I didn't know, but I kept close on my heels, running hard. I could smell a faint perfume in the air, trailing behind her. A faintly familiar odor, but not pleasant. And then suddenly she stopped and turned into the gate, so suddenly that I almost bumped into her. Oh, is this in? You found it then? May I come in with you for a moment? Perhaps you'll let me telephone my doctor.
Doctor?
Yes, Dr. Henry at the Army Hospital. I'm in his care, you know.
My home is somewhere here. I'm near it. I must get back in time. For him. I must. He's coming to me.
I say, ma'am. But she turned and walked toward the house. For a moment I hesitated. This woman was acting very strangely. But no matter, she was at least real, and I needed help. Quickly, I followed her up the steps across the porch. The door was ajar. She slipped through, and I followed into the dark house. It was so dark inside, I couldn't see anything at first. I stopped, groping. But she went on quickly, easily, as if she knew the way. She was ignoring me completely. I heard her steps cross the hall, go up the stairs quickly. I waited and listened. She walked along the hall upstairs.
Where? Oh, where is it? I must find it.
And now the hair on my neck felt as if it were rising. Was she, after all, another of my figures? Was she unreal, too?
Oh, at last, I've found it. I'm home again.
I heard her open a door upstairs, go in and close it after her. Then there was silence, profound silence. And I was alone in a dark, unoccupied house. The white-covered furniture in the hallway loomed like ghosts. And there was no sound. I felt my panic coming back. But she was upstairs. And at least she was companionship. I groped my way up the stairs. Along the upstairs hall. There was no sign of life. Where are you? I want to help you. Which room are you in? There was no answer. But as I put my hand on a table to steady myself, I felt something. It was a candle stump. With a gasp of relief, I took it up and lighted it. Now I could see a little. One by one, I tried the bedrooms. They were dusty and unused. The furniture covered, the mattresses rolled up on the beds. They were all alike. Until I opened the last door. Instantly, I knew this was it. I smelled the perfume. Only now I recognized it, understood why it was unpleasant to me. It was the smell of a hospital, of chloroform. And there was the woman, her dark fur coat wrapped around her, her jewels just showing at the neck. And she was stretched out on the bed, motionless. Instantly, I knew she was dead. In the next instant, I thought I would go mad. The blood on her face was congealing. Her skin was cold. I knew then that she'd been dead for an hour at least, and that what I saw in the street was not real. This was the shock that Dr. Henry had warned me to avoid.
And what happened then?
Well, I heard the door open up downstairs. Someone came in. The one she'd been expecting, no doubt. And suddenly I realized the danger of my being found there beside a woman who had obviously been murdered. Well, I slipped into another bedroom, and when he went into that room with her, I slipped out and crept downstairs. I stumbled and he heard me, and I came out. I ran down and out into the fog, into the street and away. How long I ran or where, I don't know. When I was exhausted, I stopped. And then you came and found me. Well, what do you think? A tall tale, isn't it?
Yes. Strange, but not incredible. I see no reason to disbelieve anything you've told me. Things equally remarkable, equally incredible, happen every day in a big city. I know from personal experience. Oh, I could give you many instances.
But the woman, I saw her, and yet she was already dead.
Such things are hard to explain, perhaps cannot be explained, except, of course, your mind in its present state may still play tricks on you. Perhaps you saw a woman in the fog and followed her. You may have missed her and only thought you saw her go into that house.
But what about the dead woman? She was real enough.
Perhaps, perhaps not. She, too, may have been just fantasy. You may never have left the street.
No, I'm sure of that, at least. I must believe it. She was real, and the man who came up the stairs was real. If I didn't believe that, I think I should go mad.
Yes, perhaps that is important. Then, let me see. Have you any proof of what you saw? Something, perhaps, that you carried away with you?
None. But wait. I left something there. My hat. I left it on the bed beside her body. My initials were in it.
Ah?
And so if it was all real, I shall be getting a visit from the police one day soon.
Perhaps.
And then I'll know. And I'll be charged with murder.
I don't think so.
You think the police would believe this fantastic story?
As I told you, many strange things happen in a city like this. For instance, I knew of a similar case many years ago. Strangely similar case. Almost a coincidence. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, I suppose so.
It happened during the last war. A colleague of mine, a surgeon now dead, married a charming girl, young and beautiful. He was wealthy, and they lived comfortably for many years. They seemed happy together. Then came the war, and he went overseas. His income was stopped, of course. The big house closed. His wife found life not so pleasant as before. And somehow she blamed her new hardships on him. You see, she was devoid of imagination, without any power for sacrifice. But she was still young and beautiful. The inevitable young man came along to console her. He was rich. They planned to go off somewhere. Only by chance, the husband came back from overseas suddenly. Just in the nick of time.
Well, he should have let her go. He was well rid of her, I'd say.
Well rid of her, yes. Only he decided to make the riddance final. He decided to kill her and her lover. You see, he loved her. He planned the time and place carefully. They met, he knew, in the big house, now closed. He waited for them there. The plan failed, however, in one important detail. She came at the appointed time, but without her lover. She found death waiting for her. Oh, completely painless death. But the lover did not come. The door had been left open for him. The house was deserted, and it was a foggy night, like tonight. But he did not come. Instead, a stranger came.
Hi. And where was the surgeon all this time?
Waiting outside, concealed in the fog. He saw the man go in, and he followed him to kill him. But the man was a stranger. He came in by chance, like you, to shelter from the fog.
I think that I should...
Why, what is the matter, sir?
Well, I really must be going.
Oh, of course, if you wish.
Thank you for your kindness and hospitality.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, young man. I enjoyed your story, although I confess I expected one a little different. Your coat?
Thank you.
I'll walk with you to the door and give you the directions. You're in luck. I think the fog's lifting a bit.
Doctor, may I ask, your friend, the surgeon, was he ever caught?
Ah, that's the part of the story I don't know. He was clever enough so that I doubt it. Unless he told somebody, made a confession.
I see.
And even so, unless that other person had some proof. Oh, by the way, you can't walk about in the fog without a hat. Here, it's an extra one of mine. You needn't trouble to return it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I went out of his consulting room with a hat on my head. In 10 minutes, I was at the tube station. It was only there that I permitted myself to take off the hat and look at it. It was my own. The hat I had left on the bed beside the dead woman.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Confession by Algernon Blackwood, adapted for radio by John Dunkel, with Bill Conrad as O'Reilly, Ramsey Hill as the doctor, and Peggy Weber as the woman in the fog. Music was conceived and conducted by Cy Feuer. Next week...
You were trapped in the dark maze of the native quarter of Mozambique. A dead man at your feet, the police closing in around you. And beside you is a girl with whom you must escape.
Next week, we escape with Percival Gibbons' fast-moving adventure, Second Class Passenger. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.